On today's Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, who are you most confident in that it's going to hit their over in the win total this season? Who's going to make the biggest strides from where they were a year ago?
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Let's get it going on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day. We're here talking about the NBA on a Saturday night. I'm Rylan, Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder and beat writer for Thunder on SI. That's Gavin, Schall, host of Locked On Knicks. And whenever you look at this NBA season, it's quickly approaching. On today's show, we're diving into who are the best bets on the win totals for the over this year and who's going to make the biggest leaps when it comes to how their season fared a year ago to what they look like today after an off season of moves. Gavin, we're inching ever so close to next season and what's almost become a year-round sport. Whenever you look at the board, it just got me really excited about this upcoming season.
Dude, I had the exact same feeling, man. They're like, I'd be lying if I said there weren't years where I'm like, oh man, here we go again, back on that horse. But maybe it's partially because I feel pretty good about my Knicks. I know you feel pretty good about your Thunder, but man, I'm incredibly excited. I'm counting down the days. I just really want to have NBA basketball on my TV again.
I cannot wait to see kind of where the season transpires. We're in this new era of parity, really the first era of parity in the NBA's history. So seeing if the Thunder can repeat and if they can even become the first team in almost a decade to get out of the second round as reigning champions, especially with the moves that they've made in the West with Denver and Houston and so many true contenders. What's going on in your Eastern Conference? We'll talk about that. Let's start with the draft of our favorite teams to leap forward in win total and also just kind of hitting the over on their win total. Gavin, who is the first team you're circling as a team that might be a little bit undervalued or you might just be more comfortable with taking their over and kind of seeing them make a leap in the win category?
Yeah, so I rank these just by win jump. So we'll get into the over unders. I'm pretty confident in the overs for all these teams too. But clearest example of a win jump team to me is the Orlando Magic. They were fifth in the NBA in aggregate value lost due to injury per people index. Obviously, Jalen Suggs missing the whole second half of the year. Banchero essentially missing half the season, not really getting fully in rhythm until after the All-Star break after a really hot start to the year. The other reason I'm really confident in them making a leap, they shot 31.8% from three last year. Rylan, I'll just throw this to you. In the last 10 years, so that's 300 seasons of NBA basketball between the 30 teams. Where do you think that percentage ranks in terms of those 300 seasons?
I'm going to say 298.
That is really close. 299. They were 0.1% ahead of the 2016 Lakers for being the worst. I'll credit our guy Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, for this. He said, look, they don't even have to shoot it well next year. They just need to be not one of the worst in modern NBA history. And you know what helps with that? Acquiring one of the 5 best shooters in the world in Desmond Bane, has the volume, has the accuracy, legitimate spacing, 30 feet and in, one of just like the most effortless, like ultra deep 3-point shooters in modern basketball, can get into it off the catch, can get into it off the dribble. Bonafide extra playmaker. I know that's one lingering area of concern for a lot of people, that even in the aggregate, there's not like a true lead ball handler on this team, and there's not quite enough playmaking. I think between Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, I'm not the biggest fan of Tyus Jones, but as a regular season player, Anthony Black, I think there's enough collective ball handling here to make up for that. And even with all their issues, even with all the injuries last year, the fact that they had zero shooting around their stars, they still had a plus 7.88 net rating and a pretty decent sample size with Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero on the floor. I think Bane is obviously going to make all their lives easier. I think Franz bounces back as a shooter. Paolo's on track for a career year. We saw Jalen Suggs 2 years ago shoot the heck out of the basketball. I'm pretty excited that this team can put it all together, certainly make a substantial jump from 42 wins last year, and the over-under for them on FanDuel, 50.5. I'm pretty confidently taking the over on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that was at the top of my big board as well. I mean, for all the reasons that you mentioned, for the fact that the win total is just 50.5 with our good friends over at FanDuel, and the fact that, this is a team that is widely regarded and rightfully so as a top 4 team in the East in a conference where half the league and then half that conference couldn't play dead in the Western. Like, they're going to beat those teams. They're going to get those wins. And when we're talking about strictly the regular season and we're not forecasting about championship aspirations, like, this is an Orlando Magic squad that should be a home court advantage team and should be a team that clears the 50 win mark by a mile and a half this season. So I love that pick for Orlando, and I just love what they do as a team. I'm interested to see it again in the playoffs, but just speaking in the regular season, they defend at a level that you're not used to seeing in the regular season. I really think that there's still steps to make, as we talked about on our last show about Paolo and Franz and like all these still young guys who are still coming into their own in the NBA. I love the Orlando Magic, and I also am sticking in the East for my first pick. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and this is where we combine
Okay. Yeah.
combine the two ideologies here. Yes, they did have an incredible season to the point where, like, expecting them to take a win total jump is really tough because they almost had the number 1 overall seed a year ago. They won 64 games, but the Thunder won 68. They were the best team in basketball last year record-wise. And when I look at this Cleveland Cavaliers team, even if they did want to protect themselves down the stretch of a season, just like the Thunder did. I mean, the Thunder continuously sat Alex Caruso. They continuously shut down players to the point where they got investigated for even if they won against Portland at the end of last year. They're just so talented, and they're so much more talented than the Eastern Conference that they're going to still rack up wins. And so whenever you mix in the fact that I still think that they're going to be better than a 64-win team that they were a year ago. So they are going to improve their win total, but they're over-under, in this case scenario from our good friends at FanDuel, 56.5. Like, they're going to double that. I don't know if that's the right math. I did go to a lot.
113.
Yeah, they're not going to double it. They're not going to double it. They're not going to double it. That was wrong. I knew it felt wrong. That was a bad ball out of the hands. As a hand up, it's on me. They're going to hit the 66 portion of this win. So I guess that'd be 10xing or whatever. Whatever the case is on the math, this is not a math pod. Cleveland's going to do it. And I really believe in them as a regular season team. I think they have a great identity as to who they are. I think that whenever you look at this roster, yes, you can have concerns about what Garland and Mitchell look like as a backcourt come playoff time, but you cannot doubt who they are in the regular season and how they win games. And then you have the defense of a Mobley, of an Allen. You add in Lonzo Ball, who I think is a great addition for them as long as they can keep him healthy, which is obviously a big if with him. But I even buy into some of their younger guys on the roster, like a Jalen Tyson. Like, I think that he's going to be an excellent addition to their core now that he's going to get some minutes opened up for him this season. At least I think that he will. I think that Dean Wade is a bit underrated in terms of like the national consensus on him, and they just put together a nice blend of top-end talent with role players. And if they hit the 68 win mark and they then add 4 wins to their win total from a year ago, but overshoot the over-under by over 10 wins or whatever, then I do believe that would be considered a passing grade for this exercise.
Yeah, I very rarely, like we talk about gambling because obviously FanDuel is a sponsor. I very rarely actually gamble. This is something I'm going to go put money on when this podcast is over, because that is the easiest over under for me. This is a regular season juggernaut in Cleveland, right? They give Kenny Atkinson a lot of credit, right? They became a well-oiled machine last year, like arguably just the most cohesive offense in basketball. Like, I think it was underrated just from an aesthetic perspective that was just one of the more fun offensive teams to watch in the last decade. The defense obviously is fantastic as well. My only concern is that they were pretty healthy last year. Obviously, you talk about Darius Garland coming into the season, potentially not ready for opening day. I don't think that's the biggest deal in the world. My bigger worry is they failed to, like, and I love the Lonzo Ball acquisition this offseason. That's awesome. I think if he is anywhere close to the guy he was 4 years ago, which maybe is iffy given the fact that he wasn't ever supposed to play basketball again, that could at least come playoff time potentially be an upgrade over Ty Jerome. You and I talked about it in a previous week. I think he is a major bounce back season. I think he is a picture perfect fit with that team. But my concern remains the lack of depth in the front court, right? They have Evan Mobley. They have Jared Allen. Dean Wade nominally is a power forward, right, and can defend that position. But there was just not a lot of like bulky, physically intimidating size. And I know that's not how they play. That's not really how the modern NBA is trending, but I would just like to have like one more rotation level big. Maybe you think geriatric Tristan Thompson has a little bit more left in him, but if there's a worry, it's that like if Allen or Mobley suffers an extended injury, I do think that defense could crumble a little bit. But man, if Mobley takes another leap, even on what he did last year, like again, that is a easy 60-win plus team.
Let's get into round number 2 with some surprise picks. I know that you have some tricks up your sleeve. I know that I do as well. So coming up, who's going to be the surprise team that catches you off guard? But first, I want to say right now, but good friends over at Game Time, go check out Game Time today because if you've ever decided at the last minute to head to the ballpark with your friends or family, maybe on a game day even, and you get this sudden spontaneous urge to be in the stands, that's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, even invite a bigger group with you to go to games because you're saving that much money with Game Time, who makes that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch or kickoff or the opening tip. They've got an incredible last minute deal selection, clear seat views, and the lowest prices guaranteed. That takes the worry out of buying tickets. I not only love the fact that prices drop the closer you get to game time, I also love the all-in pricing where the price you see is the price you pay, no hidden fees. And the view from your seat feature is a big deal because we're getting into the college football season. Perhaps you want to follow around your alma mater and watch them play all over the country to venues you haven't been into before. You can tap right in and see, what does my seat look like and how does it view in the sight lines to the field. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONNBA at $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Go download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game Time. We're back on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking NBA basketball. Go check out Locked On Cavs. How are the Cavs going to deal with what last season ended up as and the postseason flame out from them and how they move forward this season? Are they as bullish as we are about their win total? Now, Gavin, your first pick in the second round belongs to who?
Oh, we're staying in the East, baby. It's the Atlanta Hawks. We debated this. It was them or the Rockets, but arguably the best offseason in the NBA. And I think you have to note, right? Like if this all comes together the way you and I think they can, and like this is my starting lineup on paper: Trae Young, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I think, despite taking an elbow to the Adam's apple from his cousin, that was just ruthless. Shout out to your guy Shea. Proved himself to be like a bona fide playoff level rotation player, someone you could close games with in the conference finals and be really comfortable with him on both ends of the floor. Dyson Daniels, who emerged as one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. Jalen Johnson, I think, is every like NBA analyst pick to be like a first-time All-Star next year. Like hopefully he's able to stay healthy. Biggest change we've seen is Kristaps Porzingis was easily my biggest question coming into the season, right? Because the last time we watched him play, mysterious post-viral infection, looked like just like a walking corpse out there. Like I don't mean to be cavalier about what he was going through, but it was legitimately scary, and it was maybe the single biggest factor in more so than anything the Knicks did in why the Celtics ultimately lost that series, that he was just not himself. He has proven over these last 2 years to be an accelerant. And when he's healthy, he can take a good team to an unstoppable team. And obviously the Hawks don't quite have that Celtics championship level infrastructure, but this is a legitimately fantastic starting five. You have Onyeka Okongwu, who becomes one of the best backup centers in the NBA. Zach Ricochet, who surprised me and had a really good rookie year. He is like another guy who, at least like off the bench, is a playoff level wing, I think already. Luke Kennard, one of the best shooters in the world. And you have that Pelicans pick, which if I'm the Hawks, right, I am keeping that, given like what the top of next year's draft is looking like. I think you have to prioritize your future. But if there's a world where a star becomes available in season, Rylan, I think this team with that wing depth and with that Pelicans pick is borderline like uniquely well equipped. I shouldn't say that because obviously the Thunder have a million first round picks, but one of the most well-equipped teams in the league to just make a big swing, win now move. And for all those reasons, I think they make a really big jump over last year's 40 wins. And I think they hit the over. I believe it's 46.5 for them on FanDuel. It is coming into this season.
Yeah, and you know what? You shouldn't back off of that take about the trade deadline, because while the Thunder are also positioned, and there's some other teams positioned too, Houston has kept a lot of powder dry, even after acquiring Kevin Durant. The appetite to make a trade deadline deal would hit Atlanta way harder than it would hit Oklahoma City. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, the Thunder are not going to make a blockbuster move in February. Nobody is calculating that into what you expect the Thunder to do this season. Whereas Atlanta, you could easily see them going and making a massive shakeup in February. So I would agree that they're uniquely positioned in that way of having the assets and the appetite. And some teams have one or the other. They have both, and that really excels them with what they can do come regular season time. I think you've hit all the right notes. So this was a team on my big board as well. You've sniped me now for 2 picks, but I do think that this is a great pick, because I don't say this as a diminishment of Atlanta, because everyone listening to this show knows that if you've listened to the Saturday crew, we are exceptionally high in Atlanta. This is about the regular season, and while Porzingis, as you call him, the accelerator, like, perhaps he can't get them too great in the essence of like a championship team. In the essence of a regular season team, they can be great. And we've seen teams who are great in the regular season, and then the postseason, like, their flaws are a little bit more exposed, and like, maybe let's slow the roll here a little bit. It reminds me, like, in that sense, of like the Thunder and whenever they won 57 games and were the 1 seed but lost in the second round. Like, they were a great regular season team. It was not a sustainable formula for playoff basketball, but they were great in the regular season. And like, I'm not to say that's going to happen to Atlanta, but just whenever you box this in and remind the audience that we're only talking regular season, they can be great in the 82-game stretch that they play. So I love the over on them with the 46.5 from FanDuel, but I also love them to just make an organic leap from what their win total was a year ago. Now, I also have a team on here that I'm expecting to take a leap in every sense of the word, in part because I've spent the entire summer hyping up their moves, and also in part because of our Locked On Podcast Network and talking to Locked On Nuggets. They've assured me over and over and over again that with David Adelman, with this new look roster, and most importantly, the depth, they're going to take the regular season extremely seriously, and they're going to try to get the 1 seed. They're going to try to win basketball games and figure everything out with the amount of moves that they've made. I mean, like, I believe that the Cam Johnson swap of Michael Porter Jr., like, I believe that is a huge net win for Denver. It's also a huge change for Denver, that Denver needs to be in that same page. And I think that to maximize like Cam's role with Jokic, it comes with a lot of chemistry. It comes with a lot of timing with Jokic's playmaking. And you only get that by playing basketball at a high level and playing basketball together. And so for all those reasons of them being way more deep, having, I think, the second best roster in the West, having the best player in the world, having a new lease on life in the regular season, I'm going to smash their over on 53.5. And I think that when you compare that to what they did last season, where they were the 4 seed at 50 wins, if you hit the over on 53.5, and then I'm going to give them some more wins than just 54, I think they're going to win 56 games, 57 games minimum for me if they stay healthy and if they do what they're supposed to do. I think that is a qualification for a massive leap in win total and a massive hammer the lock on the over-under.
Yeah, I look, we've said it a lot, right? They went from basically 6.5 guys, at least in the postseason, to 9.5 playable guys. Like, this is just a dramatically deeper team. I do think if I were them, I would try to take some load off Nikola Jokic, because it feels like I'm sorry to continue with the football analogies, but it feels like a running back that's gotten 400 carries for 3 straight years. And because of his build, because of how ground bound his game is, I don't know if those carries hit the same as someone like, let's just say, John Morant, like flying around and like getting cascaded off the floor 3 or 4 times a night. But if I'm Denver, like I'm looking towards the long game, and I'm trying to keep Jokic's minutes down. I'm trying to keep his usage down, because he's just had to do so much to keep this team in play. And because of that, I'm a little bit reticent to go all in and say that this is going to be a 60-win team. And yet the whole premise of that is that they actually have the luxury to do that. And in a loaded Western Conference, I'm with you that they'll be well behind the Thunder, but there's a chance that I think it's Houston might be nip and tuck with them, but there's a world where Denver could just gets off to a fantastic start, and they could kind of cruise the final 10 games of the regular season. So I would also confidently take over. I would also confidently say they take a big leap in terms of regular season wins relative to last year, even if they don't go like way, way, way over like you were predicting with the Cavs, just because they slow it down a little bit towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and I think that with Denver, like you have a team that, as you mentioned, the added front court, resting Jokic, for example. Like you can say what you want to about Jonas Valanciunas. Like you can criticize his game all you want to, especially come playoff time. There is no mistaking that, like in the regular season context, he is the best backup big man that Jokic has ever had once he's gotten to this level of being Jokic. And so, like the on-off numbers are going to take a massive hit for him, but it's a positive team effect. It's a negative individual effect because it's not as gaudy as they once were going to be. But for the team's sake and for winning basketball games, like that Valanciunas addition is a big one. Even if you don't believe that the addition's a big one when it comes to hoisting the Larry O'Brien Trophy, it's a big one when it comes to capitalizing on these wins. But Gavin, we still have round 3, round 4. How are we going to shake up this win bet total board? All coming up on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast. We're back on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, talking with Gavin, Schall, Locked On Knicks. I'm Rylan, Stiles, Locked On Thunder. We're your Saturday duo, running the pick and roll today, getting you through the summer days in basketball with our best bets on win totals for the over. We'll do the under at a future date, and we're not going to be all just positive, of course, but we want to stick with the positive today with the over. And Gavin, your next pick?
Yeah, I am taking the Philadelphia 76ers, which is
what?
Yeah, weird thing for me to say. Obviously, one of the most uncertain situations in basketball. We've only gotten bad news about Joel Embiid and Paul George this offseason. But again, if I was to be clear, again, I was looking at this as like an improvement from last year where they won 24 games. They're over under on FanDuel of 42.5. I am not in good faith. Even to sell the bid on the show, going to recommend that people take the over there. But let me talk you through improvement. Second in the NBA in aggregate value, lost to injury last year. Obviously, like the per B-ball index, but again, that's not something that should surprise anyone. Joel Embiid misses the vast majority of the season. Paul George misses a little over half the season, I think, when it was all said and done. Concerns with being optimistic about this team. We can start negative as a Knicks guy. I think I have to on the Sixers. Paul George, just one season playing over 56 games the last 6 years. So I think he is who he is at this point from a health standpoint. A really clutch contract year from him, just staying on the floor enough to convince Daryl Morey to give him a whole lot of money. Same deal with Joel Embiid. The contract is obviously not aging well. He had surgery in March to fix an injured knee, and at least, unless there was something in the last week that I missed, he still has not been cleared to get back on the court. Daryl Morey does expect him to be ready for the start of the year. I think this is a bet on the idea that even if you get 50 games from Embiid and 50 games from Paul George, this is potentially like a low 40s win team, and FanDuel's over-under is indicative of that. I think the backcourt depth is fantastic, right? You presumably are starting Tyrese Maxey if they can figure out the contract. Quentin Grimes or VJ Edgecombe. If you don't, Jared McCain, even though he's played basically half a year of NBA basketball, is already one of the best bench scorers and was putting together just a legitimately scintillating stretch of scoring before he ultimately got hurt. Kelly Oubre is still very solid. I like some of the big man depth with Adem Bona. He really impressed me in Summer League. I am concerned, again, if PG misses the start of the year, they don't really have like a lot of obvious options at the 3. I think most likely they would resort to playing really small and having maybe Edgecombe, Grimes, and I'm like, I guess Kelly Oubre would be the 4 in that scenario out there at the same time. So there's maybe still a move to be made for them, but I think they could be perfectly solid. And again, in a world where maybe this is a crazy thing to bet on, where Joel Embiid has a relatively healthy season once everything with his knee settles down, they could still be quite a good team.
My reaction was because of our hot take show where I told you my love affinity for the 76ers, and I can never quit the 76ers, and I still haven't quit the 76ers. So we're now a Hawks pod. We're a 76ers pod. This is going to be a lot of fun to follow throughout the year. My next pick, I'm going to go to the West, the dangerous, the rough and tumble Western Conference. The Dallas Mavericks. Dallas Mavericks were a team that I've been circling because they only won 39 games a year ago. They were the 10th seed in the West. And yes, wins are hard to come by in the West, blah, blah, blah. But you add Cooper Flag. I think that this defense is going to be top 5 in the NBA. So I have a top 5 defense in the NBA. I have Kyrie Irving returning in the middle of the season, and with that progressional track, of course, you're hoping for some injury luck with AD on the right side of injury luck with AD. But I still believe that this team can fit the category of exceeding their win total in Vegas, which their good friends over at FanDuel set it at 40.5, but also making a jump when it comes to their win total from a year ago, which I think that if they won 45 games, which would still, not even be what Memphis won a year ago or what Golden State won a year ago. Like if they just won 45 games, I think that still qualifies as a jump for them, especially whenever you give the context of the Kyrie thing coming back midseason. So I'm going to put the Dallas Mavericks here as a bet on the West.
Yeah, they were 6th on my board, and I had them as high as 4 when I was working this out tonight. They led the NBA in aggregate value loss due to injury per BBO index. So when you're predicting a bounce back, you're assuming, all right, they probably won't be the most injured team in basketball again. Obviously, missed Luka for long stretches before ultimately trading him. Anthony Davis goes down. Kyrie Irving goes down. Season from hell that ended with one of the luckier, quote unquote, luckier breaks. Yeah, I'm a believer in that conspiracy in NBA history, and they get Cooper Flag. And because of that, this team, I think I'm with you. I think despite employing D'Angelo Russell in the rotation, I think the defense is going to be just ungodly. Like I remember they played the Knicks in November last year, and they just smothered them. And at that point, the Knicks were playing as well offensively as any team in the league. And there was like backcourt pressure. Like the Knicks could barely get into their sets. It's a credit to Jason Kidd. And you add like one of the 5 or so best defensive prospects of the last 25 years in Cooper Flag to that. He gets to learn under Anthony Davis. You get Derek Lively back healthy. You have Daniel Gafford coming off the bench, PJ Washington off the bench, Najee Marshall, Max Christie. That is just a lot of mean, angry, intense, lengthy physical talent coming off the bench for the Dallas Mavericks. I think they're going to be winning games 92-89 until Kyrie Irving comes back. And to your point, when he does, and if he gets into a rhythm quickly, which given his skill set, I think it could all come back for him relatively fast. This is a team that could just go on a tear, like final 25 games of the season and go 21-4 or something and just shoot past that margin. I'm with you. I do hope they can acquire one more shot creator because to the point of this conversation, I think it's going to be really ugly initially, but man, they're just going to grind out some wins.
I love that. And I mean, we'll snake this around here. My last pick is just going to be the Boston Celtics. And I'll simply just regurgitate the phrase that you use, infrastructure. You mentioned that with Kristaps Porzingis. He doesn't have the same infrastructure in Atlanta that he did in Boston. I look at Boston and I see a still quality roster that is overlooked right now because they had to make some full sell changes. And of course, Tatum's out for the year. But the Eastern Conference, man, is going up against Jaylen Brown, Derek White. I still believe in Simons. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe that's just silly of me. But you have Sam Hauser, you have Peyton Pritchard. Like I still believe in Jordan Walsh for them, which is a little bit of a deep cut for the Celtics. But I just think that this is a team that cannot surpass their regular season win total. And this is where I lean more into the Vegas side of things because obviously they're not going to get back to where they were from last season. But the perception of them preseason can make them a surprise team because the perception of them is like, well, are they going to tank this year? Are they going to tank this year? I mean, the Vegas win total in the Eastern Conference is 42.5. And I just think that this team is going to be in the top 6 of the East. And to do that, they're going to need to surpass that win total. And they're going to be able to beat up on some of the bottom feeder teams in the East that, like for Boston's sake, it's exactly what you mentioned. The identity that team has, how well they're coached, and just the infrastructure of how they play games allows them to beat up on not only the bad East teams, but the young East teams who are trying to figure their way out that perhaps have more overall talent on their roster than the current Celtics do because of the injuries. But they cannot get the wins that Boston can get in the defining moments of games. I think that Boston can be a surprise team. And that's why it's my last pick because it doesn't necessarily fit all the criteria. But I just think that when you're looking at this as a surprise team, it can be Boston.
Can I just read you their current front court rotation? It includes Chris Boucher, Neemias Queta, Luka Garza and there aren't really power forwards. Basically, all those guys are center. I guess Jordan Walsh maybe is a power. So and I guess look, they're going to play small. They're going to shoot. Like you thought they shot a lot of threes last year. They're going to shoot 1 billion threes this year. I was just telling you before the show, I do a combined fantasy football and basketball league. I was incredibly happy to snag Peyton Pritchard because I think there's a world where he puts up 25 points per game this year and shoots 14 threes and hits 40% of them. Like, he is going to have a crazy, crazy year. I would not be shocked if he makes an all-star team this year as a guy who's never even started before. Anthony Simons is going to score 1 million points off the bench. Derek White's going to get to shoot 1 million threes. Jaylen Brown could average 30. They're going to play up-tempo. They're going to play fun. They're going to be one of the most entertaining teams in the league. I do agree with you, Joe Mazzulla, right? Like, he is maybe the single craziest person that has ever been involved with the NBA, which is saying a lot given some of the competitors that have come through the NBA. I could certainly see them going over 42.5. It's hard for me to bet on it with their current front court rotation. The fact that they didn't really ever make a meaningful effort beyond just like kind of bargain bin signings to address the front court tells me that their priority is not to win as many games as possible. And maybe, just maybe, it is to end up in the lottery and try to get Cooper Flag situation for themselves. But I will finish up with we talk about them a lot, our San Antonio Spurs, I think are a good option. I bet they were high on your board too. Very obvious, like, jump candidate in terms of just pure win total for me. Last season, they finished with just 34. Of course, Victor Wembanyama misses most of the second half of the year with blood clots. De'Aaron Fox gets shut down to have surgery, I believe, on his wrist from that preseason injury. They are going to play, I think, a lot faster. I think they've done a really good job insulating their depth. It's possible, we talked about this the other week, that Victor Wembanyama just emerges as a top 5 player in the world this year. That was your pick for guys who are going to make a big leap this season. I think he possibly just puts it all together. I mentioned it, really low rim volume next year. I think that's something that changes running pick and rolls with De'Aaron Fox. Dylan Harper has a chance from day one to be one of the better bench scorers in the NBA. I don't think this team is perfectly constructed. I don't love everything they did this offseason, and yet I think the depth and the frontline talent is such that this is pretty clearly going to be a team that wins 40 games and maybe challenges for quite a bit more than that.
I completely agree. They are our Hawks, our Spurs. We have our teams here, our Sixers, that will be following all year. Gavin, this was fun. We'll be back with our unders that we're going to be best bets and our regressors for next season in a future episode. But make sure you stay tuned to Locked On NBA for Locked On NBA Game Night, the national show, and go check out Locked On Knicks, how in the York handle beating up on a bad Eastern Conference. Until next time, be good and be good to one another.